Folks, welcome to Essential Research Skills. Instead of going down a long list of things that make probably not a whole lot of sense or that are boring, I figured I would share my little journey and talk about the things that I learned along the way to give you some examples. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. Okay, so this is a cool picture in Oregon where I went to graduate school. I'm from California and the beaches here are much smaller. In order to get down to this beach, which is like 3 football fields wide from the edge over here, all the way to the ocean, it's crazy how big the beaches are there. You had to climb down like 72 stairs. It was gnarly. So that's pretty crazy, but it was a fun surf spot and something that we got to do, even though the water was super cold. We just have to wear a really thick wetsuit for any of you that are interested in the ocean. Also, because the water is so cold up there, all the critters, like in the tide pools, get ginormous. So something we can talk about if you're interested. Okay, so I was in the military many, many moons ago. I was in the Marine Corps, so these are just some goofy pictures I show everybody. After that, I did not go right to school. I took a year at junior college and did okay, but my folks didn't have any money for me to go to school, and I really wanted to be a veterinarian. So instead, I worked for a veterinarian. These are some pictures of some cute critters that I got to work with. These two little mini donkeys used to always bite me. Yeah, little brats. I got to hold a cool falcon one time. That's just a cute picture of a baby horse that was born when I was working at the hospital. And then I also did other random jobs like bartending. I was a hiking guide for a while, did all kinds of different stuff. So I just want to share like no path is the right path. Okay. Every path is okay. And mine was super windy and weird. This was my very first research gig. I don't know if any of you know what this bird is. I don't like birds very much, but I do like this one. It's called the Western Snowy Plover. It is a protected bird, so it's not endangered yet, but it's like the next step down. And their little babies look like cotton balls on toothpicks on the beach. I did some service learning for a class and was picking up trash. And one of the guys that drove us in one of the trucks down to the far end of the beach, his wife does this research on this bird. She was looking for an assistant, so I went out and helped her. I got to use my military skills of crawling around in the dirt and trying to be all camouflage, because they're very spooked, these little birds. So it was kind of fun, and that was my first accidental research project by being able to volunteer like once every couple weeks because I worked full time, so it wasn't like I had a lot of time to do this, but she would take me out whenever I could go, and it was pretty cool. So I got to learn how to do research, which was really fun. I also want you to know about the Santa Rosa Island Research Station. So this is just kind of an ugly map of Southern California and the Channel Islands. Our research station is out here. So this is for everyone at school, not just for the environmental science department, but we use it a lot. We have um, an agreement with the Park Service that we go out there and do research. When I finally did get back to school at Channel Islands, it had been like 15 years, I think, 15, 16 years since I was out of the Marine Corps. So it took quite a while for me to get my shit together, and get situated. But then I really enjoyed, being outside and being out on the island. I had some physical issues with my knees and whatnot, some injuries. So I couldn't hike everywhere, but I could get to a lot of cool places. And so I did some stuff with kelp and whatnot. Uh-oh, what happened? So I want you to take a look at this picture and tell me what you see. So what I see is like the pretty ocean, right? And kind of a deserted beach, but then a bunch of like weird trash. And this is a beach on the backside of Santa Rosa Island, and this is where elephant seals hang out and pup. And unfortunately, they are laying in the trash. And so when I was out there for a research class, I got to see this and I was like, holy cow, what is this issue with all this trash, right? And so this is kind of what started my journey into being a trash collector in a sense. This is a picture of me on a friend's project. So later down the road, and she still works on this actually. She's local. She's always looking for interns. Her name's Michaela Miller. So she collects lobster traps that have been washed ashore. So we took like a ATV out, so I'd have this super dirty face from all the gross dirt, and went out and we collected trash off this back beach and then hiked it up the hills. That was not very fun for me. Um, in environmental science and some other places too, but we get to go to a lot of places. You have to apply, obviously. Um, this was what's called an IRA, institutional research or something like that. Anyway, it's money that comes from your tuition, and there's a board that decides which professors' grants get funded, and then you take students places. So this was one that I got to go on when I was a student here at Channel Islands. So it cost me money, and I had to save up for it, but it was totally worth it. I had never been out of the country before, and definitely not to a tropical island. So this was crazy, really, really cool. It was really pretty. Um, you can see that the water is like super clear and very, very pretty. There were all these cool tropical fish and coral. I got to go with Dr. Steele and Dr. Anderson. When I was snorkeling with Dr. Steele, I didn't know what any fish were, and she's a fish reef ecologist. And so every time I saw one, I would like yank on her fin and ask her what it was. So she's thankfully still friends with me today, even though I was that student that was bugging her the whole time. Um, just really, really fun pictures, of getting to get out in the water and stuff that I never thought I would be able to do. It's pretty awesome. Um, then I was a senior here at Channel Islands, and my capstone was all about sand crabs, and they live in this nearshore environment, which is where, where the waves are, and this is what a sand crab looks like up close. So I was looking to see if microplastics are inside of sand crabs, and so I learned all about microplastics. You can see there's a lot of different sizes, things like bottle caps and buttons, and then we have little nurdles down here, and they're just really, really tiny. So I was learning all about that. These are some things that I found inside of sand crabs. So we find a lot of fibers inside, so I got to learn how to use the microscope, dissecting tools. This is all part of my senior capstone research. And then I went out and started talking to people. So one of your assignments is to look at professional things that you can do for environmental science. So up here on the top left was my capstone poster. In the middle, that's Dr. Steele, Dr. Miller, and I, when we were still students, presenting at like a Surfrider meeting. So it's a local nonprofit meeting, cleaning up trash. This middle picture is me at a surf contest, just talking about like some of the research that we were doing. Down here at the bottom is me and another student, Tevin. We went to the provost or president's conference. We went and presented our research. These are just some other friends, another surf contest that I went to. So it doesn't always have to be, conferences and meetings. You can go to and do all kinds of stuff to talk about your research. So I had a couple different jobs after I talked about this. In school, I applied for this thing called recent graduates with the Park Service. And so don't worry, that kitty is alive. It's a bobcat locally here in the Santa Monica Mountains. So it's sedated, and I got to work with some of the biologists because of course, I still wanted to be a veterinarian. And my job was to distract the kitty while the veterinarian poked it in the butt with ketamine. So I don't know if any of you have cats. I do, but this kitty is much scarier than my kitties. It was really scary trying to distract it. So basically, it was real angry at me, and then the vet poked it in the butt. They were changing out her collar because she's growing, and they got to measure her. She's really healthy. The other part-time gig that I got, Dr. Patch was doing some GIS, which is a program on a computer that you can learn how to do. It's mapping, and she hired myself and one or two other students to work, like 10 hours a week. So I switched that in between classes to get some experience doing that. So you just kind of have to hunt around for the paid experiences. I couldn't afford to just volunteer. I had rent to pay. I went back to school older, right? So I couldn't just do it for free. So I was always on the hunt for jobs that paid. Then I graduated. These are just the professors that were there. Dr. Rodriguez is gone, and so is Dr. O'Hyrick. Now we have some new professors in environmental science. And then I got a job. I worked with the Park Service, and so I kept doing this, and then I worked some more days. I actually was a park ranger during the 100th anniversary of the National Park Service. So that day down at the Rose Parade, I think I swore in like 1,000 junior rangers. It was kind of crazy. The next gig I got was Dr. Steele knew one of the guys running this program, and they knew they were looking for a student, and so we did wetland research. So this is a lot like what Dr. Spies does now, Dr. Brenton Spies. we were seining or dragging a big net through the wetlands. So this is out at Point Magoo, which I'm sure you've seen if you've driven towards the coast. And this is a really cool guitar fish. Um, hold on a second. All right, let me reshare my screen here. Okay, so this is me getting some scuba diving in. I had always wanted to learn how to scuba dive, and I decided that, in school would be the way to do it. So I took a class down in Long Beach where you learned how to not only scuba dive, but be a scientific scuba diver. That's our instructor in the back. He was not very funny. Then I got a job as a fish and wildlife park ranger. So similar to what I did with the Park Service, but with fish and wildlife. And this particular group worked with the California condors. So that's me holding a hot, stinky dead flesh eating condor. Pretty cool though, right? Then I went off to school in Oregon and at Portland State University and finished my PhD up there. The research that I did was more sand crab stuff, but I volunteered to help friends. So I was teaching as my job. I was like a teaching assistant or what they call a TA. And so then I would have classes up here on the right, like teaching folks how to do different stuff. I had high school students that were interested in science that would come in and work in the lab with me. Um, we taught little kids about science, out on the beaches. And then I volunteered to help my grad school friends do any of the research they were doing, like on the weekends and stuff. And so I learned how to do all kinds of different stuff that was not within my research purview. So it was really cool. Um, then some professors from Channel Islands uh, during my grad school were going down to Costa Rica to work on some different things with some students, some current undergraduate students. So I went along and collected fish and sand crabs. These are some of the students that got to go on that trip. And so talking to local kids about what we were doing. This is Dr. Carol Latte, who was our co-advisor down there from the University of Costa Rica. I was just trying not to get burned because I was like super white from being in Oregon, and so she was always teasing me a little bit. But we had a really good time. And there's Dr. Rodriguez in the back getting his fishing bowl organized. This is just a cool video of what Oregon looked like compared to where I just had been in Costa Rica. It's very cold, um, very, very windy and wavy. Um, so, I was going out to collect this Dungeness crab here. So here are the Fish and Wildlife folks from Oregon. We were collecting Dungeness crab from my project up in Portland. This is what they look like. They're those big, huge crab that people pay lots of money for. Um, I boiled them down to look inside of them for microplastics. This is just kind of part of the process. This is me working out with Amy and Keaton. Um, Doing some cool stuff in the wetlands. I had never seen seagrass like this before, so we took the boat as far as we could and then walked out. Amy had oysters out there that she was doing her project. They were a couple years ahead of me in school, so I got to learn stuff that I had never done. So just by saying yes to help out friends in the lab, um, we accidentally brought home what's called a European green crab. And so these guys are not native to the Pacific coast and they eat everything. Like they're the guy at the party that eats all the pizza, drinks all the beer, and doesn't bring anything and then leaves. And so when we accidentally got one, we saved it just to be able to show people what they look like. All throughout our projects, we all tried to bring in as many high school and undergraduate students that were interested. And so we didn't, Amy had money to pay some of them as part of one of her grants. So we were able to pay a few students, but a lot of times they had to volunteer. I got some money from a program to pay a couple students to work as well. So we were always trying to find grants and whatnot. So just make sure you ask your professors, ask grad students, see if they have money to pay you for your work. Eventually, I got to go to Hawaii and do some really cool whale research with Dr. Rachel Cartwright and Dr. Claire Steele. That happens every other year still. This is what it looks like underwater in Hawaii. It's pretty amazing. That's a real picture from one of our dive trips. And then let me see if this whale video will play. So this is a humpback whale. underwater. That's actually a baby. I know it looks ginormous, but it's a baby coming to check us out. So this is just a GoPro sticking under the water. Um, so this is another project that we do every year. And I just went to help out when I was in grad school, and now it's something that I get to go do regularly. Okay, and that's it. So something to think about when you're trying to pick out your research is what kind of problems do you want to solve, right? Remember, you can always email me if you have questions or you need help with anything. And that's it for today. Thank you.